Hey everyone, thanks for joining me for episode 9 of my opinions on hyped fragrances. I've got, I think, 20, somewhere in the neighborhood of 20 fragrances to share with you that I've sampled over the past month. And I have the entire series of these videos linked for you down in the description box, along with discount codes that you can use at Twisted Lily, at Joma's Shop, and at So Avant-Garde if you'd like to shop for some of these fragrances. In these videos, I share with you impressions across 4 categories. Is the fragrance mass appealing, meaning that would a lot of people generally enjoy the fragrance? What are my impressions of what the fragrance smells like without really looking up notes? What do I pick up from it? And 3, do I think that it is long lasting and projecting, again, from a sample? So keep that in mind and take that with a grain of salt. And 4, would I personally be interested in a full bottle of the fragrance? For the first 2, I got decants from Jackie at Jack's Beautiful You to try out. Thank you, girl. The first one is from Vilhelm Parfumerie, and it's Moon Carnival. And I think that this is a mass appealing fragrance for people who enjoy white florals. You really have to be a floral lover for this one to kind of tickle your fancy. It was very heavy on the tuberose, a gardenia note, a general like melange of white florals. I picked up some really sort of marshmallowy powderiness in the fragrance, vanilla, sort of a sweet, white floral powdery fragrance that really appealed to me. I found it to be a very highly sort of feminine, alluring fragrance, one that I know my husband would love on me. It had very decent projection and longevity, not the longest lasting, but seemed to be the kind of fragrance that could take you well through a workday. And I'm very interested in a full bottle of this fragrance. So this is on my maybe purchase list. Next up from Milano Fragranze is Panettone. When I first sampled this, I thought I had fallen face first into a loaf of freshly baked panettone bread. If you're familiar with that, it is the Italian bread that comes out at Christmas time, and it has dried fruits in it. And I love that it smells like a sweet doughiness. So for me, panettone gave me that, except like in a toasted sense. Here, when we have panettone around the holidays, my husband, his mom is Italian, so we're very familiar with Italian dishes and desserts. We like to toast the panettone and then slather it with butter because that makes it even more delicious. So I felt like I was having a slice of toasted panettone bread. Really yummy, really cozy fragrance. It's one that is so strongly in gourmand territory. If you're not a gourmand lover, this is not going to suit you. So in that sense, I do not think that this is a mass appealing fragrance. You have to really enjoy sweet, foodie fragrances to get into panettone. And in terms of longevity and projection, very moderate to long lasting all around. And I am interested in a bottle of this fragrance. I do wonder how much I would wear it because it is so realistic in terms of smelling like actual panettone bread. So keep that in mind if you're interested in this. Maybe sample this one first and see how you feel about it in terms of purchasing a full bottle and would you wear it often. But it was a delicious sampling experience. I enjoyed it. I already told you about the next one and shared that I actually went ahead and purchased a full bottle of it. It's in my New Beauties video, the last one I did from that series. This is from Omnia Profumi, and this is called Platino. I love the bottle shape on this. Hold on, let me show you. Here we go. This is what this looks like. So I talked all about this bottle shape in that New Beauties video. I love that this is this. At the same time, it has an airiness, but also a creaminess to it. If you can imagine those two things coexisting together in a fragrance, airiness and creaminess, a little bit of a coconut accord, a lot of almond, like a powdery light almond, almost bordering on being plasticky in a way that I'm definitely okay with. I'm not crazy about some plastic types of notes in fragrances, but it works really well in here. There's some tender florals. It's a very soft fragrance. It has decent projection, but does become more of like a close to the skin, maybe not skin scent, but close to the skin type of a fragrance, moderate longevity, and just really pleasant. One that if you are a gourmand lover, you'll appreciate the gourmand aspects in this, but could easily be worn by a non-gourmand lover as well. It's not like deeply into food territory. This is a very, very pleasant experience for me. I do want to warn that some people may find this a little bit on the like plastic doll head type of end, smell like a Barbie doll head or whatever dolls you used to play with, my friends, like the way that those new plastic heads smell. There's some of that happening here, tamed down, and I get more of like that beautiful almond accord than anything else in this fragrance. So I already purchased a full bottle, so yes, it's absolutely full bottle worthy for me. Another fragrance that I have a lot of interest in from the same house, Omnia Profumi, is Madera. This is a fragrance that has caramel and vanilla and coconut. It also has some florals, a little tobacco. When I sampled this without looking at the notes, I got this intriguing floral woodiness with some sort of sweet aspect in the background that I was trying to work out. And I remember being intrigued and kind of looking off in the distance and trying to figure out what I was smelling. I enjoyed this and is something that I would probably want to pick up. I found this to also have moderate longevity and projection, and I'm interested in a bottle of this. Do I think that it's mass appealing? I'm not quite sure if people would really be into that combination of the florals and the woods, at least as I picked it up on sampling. I'd love to see how it plays on skin and if it comes across differently before saying for sure. But for right now, I'm very interested in this. Now, when I did go to look at Fragranze reviews, a lot of people reported picking up deep caramel, the coconut, and the vanilla. And so in that sense, I'm even more interested to see how a full bottle would perform on me. So that is on my wish list. So I have sampled a bunch from the house of Gritty. That's how we're saying it here in the States. I'm sure the pronunciation is more like gritty or something like that. So I have another video coming where I'm going to review a bunch of houses in one, kind of one of like those bonus midweek videos that will come up. But there are two here that I wanted to mention. One is Syracuse that I was expecting to be this beautiful, bright, uplifting, green floral fragrance for summer. I was really looking forward to sampling this one. It was supposed to feel fresh based on some of the reviews that I heard from other reviewers here on YouTube. And is this mass appealing? It gets a big no from me in that category. I found this, I'm looking down at my spreadsheet, and if you've watched me, you know I keep copious notes on all of these sampling experiences. I found this to be aggravating to my nose. This was metallic, this was sharp. There was something in here that just didn't work for me. Like it was an immediate, like very unpleasant experience to try this on. This one hung around for a while. It wouldn't quit. The area of my body that it sampled it on, I kept getting wafts of it as the day was going on, and it just kind of kept slapping me around like, how dare you try me? It was rude. This was a rude fragrance for me. I did not care for this at all. I think the bottle's gorgeous. I think the concept of it is gorgeous. When I look back at the notes, there's a palm leaf note. I think the lemon blossom is another note that's in here. I don't know what happened. This was just not happening for me. And it was so unpleasant that I didn't even want to try the sample again. Now, you know, through watching these videos of opinions on hyped fragrances, that opinions change. Like when I go to sample something again a second or third time, I might actually fall in love with it and like it. But this is one of those that I didn't even want to bother trying again. It was that unpleasant. So in that sense, I'm going to say this is not full bottle worthy for me in any way, shape, or form. Also tried Gossip Night, which has been making the rounds here on YouTube quite a bit. I also don't think this fragrance is mass appealing. I know some folks really love this, and I always respect that people have different scent experiences. For me, I really, really dislike this to the point where I wrote down, hated it, you know, in my notes. I found this to be something like a headache in a bottle. You know what I mean? Sometimes you'll, you know, sniff a fragrance and woo, and you can immediately tell that it's going to sort of rock your brain, and not in a good way. I felt like this smelled like stale hairspray. And I wrote down grape juice powder with metal shavings from science class. Do you remember the little metal shavings, and you used to take the magnets to move the shavings around to show the power of magnetic force fields? The way that those shavings smelled is kind of like what this smelled like for me. It was a very purple in my mind scent. It was cold and it was standoffish. I don't know what happened, because this is not the experience that other people have reported here on YouTube. And so there's a part of me that wants to try this again, but it was just like so unpleasant that I think I'm just going to leave this alone. And no, I do not think Gossip Night is full bottle worthy. These fragrances are not inexpensive. I think at least some of the ones I've looked at were over 200, like in the 240-ish range, somewhere in there. And, you know, that's a chunk of change to put down on a bottle. And I want to be sure that I'm going to at least enjoy. I don't have to love every fragrance in my collection, but I want to look forward to wearing a fragrance and think that it's nice. And these two, unfortunately, just didn't do it for me. I want to move on now to two Carolina Herrera fragrances. You know, me and Carolina, we go way, way back. I wore the original Carolina Herrera EDP, the original tuberose bomb of a fragrance back in the day. And I've been wearing Carolina Herrera since then. I fell in love with her Confidential line a few years ago and have been collecting those. So these are two from that line. I've enjoyed most of them. I haven't loved them all. The first one is called Amber Desire. I do not think that this is a mass appealing fragrance because of the type of fragrance that it is. Some people are not going to be ready for it. It is deep, sticky sweet, like sticky, viscous, sticky, sweet, amber, and vanilla together. Whew. It reminds me of Material from Amouage and Grand Soir smashed together in one fragrance. Grand Soir from MFK, kind of melded together into one fragrance with a little bit more sweetness and thickness, like slapped on top of that and mixed all around. And go on and add a little bit more sort of syrupy sweetness on top of that, or syrupy stickiness rather. It's not the sweetest fragrance. It has an appropriate amount of sweetness in it to be an amber fragrance. This is, I feel like, super luxe for amber lovers. For right now, I'm going to say that this is not something that I'm interested in a full bottle of because I have fragrances in that category that I really want to show some love to. But you know how that goes. If this shows up on discount somewhere and I have a wild hair, it might be one that I add to cart and just add to the collection because it is quite a lovely fragrance. Moving along then to Stallion Leather, which I believe is a newer release from the Confidential line. I don't think that Stallion Leather is mass appealing like at all. So why is that? And I'm going to say this from a lady's point of view. This is a heavy leather fragrance. This is a leather punch to the face. Hear me. It is a leather punch to the face. It reminded me very much of ombre leather. And the notes that I have is that it is ombre leather from Tom Ford, ombre leather's skankier brother. This is the rough and tumble, ruggish, thuggish leather brother of ombre leather. Okay. So know that if you're looking at this fragrance, it did last a long time. It did project. And if I were in the neighborhood for a leather fragrance, like for my husband, I would absolutely purchase this for him or have him purchase it for himself. He's pretty happy with his collection right now. In fact, he's like, babe, stop with the fragrances. Like, I'm good. His shelf is full and happy, and he doesn't want any others. But if we were in the neighborhood for a leather fragrance, this would be a strong contender. The bottle is gorgeous, and the others that we have from this line have all been really strong performers. So it's beautiful. But we're not going to get a bottle, at least right now. But again, show me the sale and we'll talk about that after the sale. Next up is a beautiful bottle, La Vie est Belle Absolu. Oh my goodness. So I really like the shape of the original bottle. I like the shape of the flankers. I have L'Eclat with the beautiful sort of studded front and back. I have La Vie est Belle Oui, which is a favorite of mine. So this fragrance, I think, is mass appealing for people who are into iris. This is a gorgeous powdery iris opening on this fragrance. In fact, it was so deep into iris territory. I was like, why is this a flanker? Like, where is the La Vie est Belle fragrance? Where is that? Where's the DNA? I didn't find it anywhere in the beginning. I'm talking about like the super well-mannered lady with the pinky in the air and the little delicate porcelain tea glass that's sitting on the little, charger or whatever that's called, the base. That kind of an iris. And I had given up on this thinking it's a nice, beautiful, powdery iris. So what? Now, as I wore it more and more, the La Vie est Belle DNA came through. In fact, it came through so much that it eclipsed the iris and powder aspects of this fragrance. And this just then became the original La Vie est Belle for me. That's what I kind of got out of the experience. Let me know, have you purchased this fragrance? And if so, did that iris stay through to the middle experience of the fragrance and through to the end of the day? How did it work for you? So I don't know what to say about this fragrance in terms of whether it's mass appealing, like how people would feel about it. So if you like that iris and you don't mind that it's mostly front loaded into the opening and maybe kind of lingers on into the mid, sure, this could be a really mass appealing fragrance. It had moderate to long-lasting longevity and projection on it. And I don't want a bottle of this for myself, although I might revisit it at some point. It is a gorgeous bottle. I love the way that the actual glass on the bottle is designed. And yeah, let's just leave it at that. Let's go on. Next up is a fragrance that really surprised me. I was not expecting to enjoy this fragrance. In fact, I was fully expecting to talk some smack about this one. It's Tom Ford Soleil de Feu. is how you say it, I believe. If you know differently, let me know. So the fragrance surprised me because I was expecting it to be a little bit messy in the way that other reviewers were describing it. For me, this was a really warm, very familiar, nostalgic experience. It reminded me a lot of some fragrance from the 80s that I can't put my finger on, the warm embrace kind of fragrance. I picked up amber, I picked up tuberose, I picked up this warm woodiness, this vanillic feeling to it that just felt really cozy and comfortable, yet also put together, elegant and sophisticated. So Tom Ford did it again with this fragrance. You know, people are either Tom Ford fans or they're not. I would say I'm on the fan side. I haven't loved every single release from Tom Ford, but I have a bunch in my collection, and so does my husband. We generally enjoy sampling and or purchasing Tom Ford fragrances. This one had, I would say, moderate projection, like sort of in this space. And it lasted a pretty decent amount of time, not like into late evening, but it definitely gave me a good run. And this is one that is on my wish list as full bottle worthy. Big thumbs up for this one. Not sure why it was released in the summertime. For me, this feels more like a fall or winter fragrance. Could you wear it in the summer? Of course you all. You can wear whatever you want any time of year. But for me, this has the comfort that we look for in those fall fragrances. Absolutely delightful. Would love to add this to my collection. Then many of my pals here on YouTube have sampled this. Some have loved it and some have just not gotten with it. It's Spice Bomb from Simone Andreoli. I, in terms of being mass appealing, would say that this is maybe. I think it's a maybe. Some people will love it, and then I think some people will be probably really turned off by it. My description is that it felt soft, lacy, like a sweet cherry with some slight woodiness. Soft and lacy, sweet cherry. So more on the delicate side, not like a super heavy syrupy kind of a cherry, more airy of a cherry with some woodiness. It was an interesting fragrance. I didn't feel compelled to think about purchasing a bottle. It did have good projection, decent longevity. And for now, I'm going to say no, although this was a fragrance that I enjoyed sampling and would certainly revisit in the future. And if you like cherry, and some of the cherries that are out in the market maybe are a little bit sickening because they're too thick, too obvious, like too literal of an interpretation, this might be a little bit more of an artistic cherry interpretation that you'd be interested in trying out here for the summer and as we go into the fall months. I'm going to sneak a fragrance in here that isn't, you know, hyped up or not even new. I think this is a couple of years old at this point, but I happened to get a sample of it. Don't ask me why I wanted a sample of this, but I did. Marc Jacobs Daisy Oh So Intense. This whole line gets a bad rap because Marc Jacobs sort of just pumped out daisy after daisy after daisy. So Daisy Oh So Intense is a yes in terms of mass appeal. I was fully expecting, by the way, to think that this was some generic fragrance that didn't deserve a mention. In fact, I hadn't even purchased this with the thought of putting it in this video. I just kind of wanted to sample it. This really surprised me, especially here for the summertime. I picked up a sweet, warm melon, warmed up melon type of a scent with a strong vanilla base to it. This was really appealing. I thought this was great, very feminine, very easygoing, very, very likable, very mass appealing. And the longevity was meh. And the projection was meh, but it was good and I liked it. And in fact, I think I've heard a few reviewers here lately talking about this in their rotations, something like that. Maybe that's why I was interested in it. So yes, this is a fragrance that I think deserves some love, and I would be interested in a bottle of this. I'm going to go next to two Mizensir fragrances. I can't say that these are hyped, and so I'm kind of sneaking them in here because I wanted to try them out. One is Sweet Praline, and I have to give a shout out to Sharita because she had sampled this too and had an experience similar to what I'm about to describe, and she saved me from purchasing a full bottle. Thank you, girl. Mass appeal? No. Sweet Praline is not mass appealing in my experience. I found this to be a very faint and what I would call an underdeveloped sweet dessert accord. So there was like a hint of that in the background, but it was almost like the fragrance had not completed the maturation process, or it had not sort of grown up as a fragrance. It was still kind of in draft concept idea, like when you sketch out a design for a house and it hasn't come to life yet. It was almost like that, like the idea of a dessert accord. If that appeals to you and you want something sort of very faint, demure, like pale on your skin, and I don't mean that in a bad way, but pale on your skin such that it's not stepping out into other people's spaces. You just want your own little tiny scent bubble and you don't want it super gourmand. You just want like hints. This might be a fragrance that you'd be interested in because I was expecting from the name sweet praline, like something just like sticky sweet, you know, it just didn't do it for me in that sense. I found it to be a little bit flat and uninspiring for what I was expecting. So for me, this fragrance is a no. And then I do think this is a newer release, Anticonformiste. Anticonformiste, anti-conformist is what that translates into. Mass appealing, absolutely yes, but here's the catch, not feminine. So this is one that I would definitely classify as a masculine leaning fragrance for sure. And in that way, I didn't know what I was getting myself into with this sampling experience. Very masculine. This was woody, sharp, fresh, metallic, and clean is what I got from this. Moderate to long lasting as a fragrance, and full bottle, yes, but not for me. Definitely for a gentleman in my life who likes this kind of scent, or ladies, if you're into the masculine leaning fragrances, this might be one that you should check out. Anticonformiste. Definitely a lovely, beautiful fragrance, just not for my personal taste. So that's Mizensir. And then a number of viewers, when I did those tropical fragrance kinds of videos, suggested that I try out from Keiko Masheri. I am going to embarrass myself trying to say this name, so let's just put it on the screen. Is this a mass appealing fragrance? Yes, I do think that this is very, very mass appealing. This came across to me as a soapy, white floral, very creamy in the way that like the scent texture that it gave you. This was softer and more sensual in terms of the projection. It was like closer to my body than some of the other samples that I tried out. It had moderate longevity. And for me, is this full bottle worthy? For me, it's a no. However, if you like the way that Pure Poison from Dior smells, I got a lot of that in this fragrance. It gave me similarities with that, or it reminded me of that. So if that kind of soapy floral with a little bit of, like I said, creaminess, some, you know, nice, smooth, buttery texture kind of a thing appeals to you, you may want to check this fragrance out. So it was lovely that way, just not for me at this moment. I also tried out Bond Number 9's Scent of Peace. A lot of the ladies here who enjoy Bond Number 9 and have a big collection have Scent of Peace in their, you know, in their fragrance wardrobe. And so I was eager to try this out. I had tried it out a long time ago, but did not remember what it smelled like. I do think that this is a very mass appealing fragrance. I think a lot of people would enjoy smelling this. It was, for me, soft, subtle, inoffensive, and I also found it a little bit generic. And the only reason I bring that up is because we are talking about Bond Number 9. This house can be pretty pricey. I'm a fan. I've got, I don't know, 7 or 8 bonds at this point, and I enjoy my bottles. There was one Bond Number 9 that I owned and didn't love it enough to keep, but it was still nice and had its own appeal, and that's Jones Beach. I ended up selling that to someone, so I hope it's in a happy home, getting good use. Bond Number 9 Scent of Peace, for me, it was very soft on the skin, decent longevity. You know, it's kind of one of those everyday wear type of fragrances that you can wear to the office, running errands. It could be a signature scent in that you're never going to bother anyone with this fragrance. And for me, in terms of full bottle worthy at this moment, I'm going to say no. I found it a little bit ordinary for the price. And I will say a good sale will always change an opinion. Will always change my opinion. So don't hold me to that. You know, those Joma Shop sales, they get me. When they run those flash sales, I'm on that website like, add to cart, add to cart, add to cart, add to cart. So I don't know. This may end up in the collection, but for right now, I'm going to say no. It is very, very pleasant, though. If you're looking for an everyday signature scent that is pleasant, unoffensive, non-offensive rather, check out Scent of Peace. And then I don't know if I talked about this fragrance before or not, so if it's a repeat, forgive me. This is from the House of Oud, and this is Keep Glazed, that I was interested in trying because of the mango note in the fragrance. I don't think that this is a mass appealing fragrance, and here's what I have to say. This fragrance opened nicely with a lot of promise, where I was like, oh, this is going to be fun. And then it just settled down into this gingery, plasticky mess on me that was just like a big no. I couldn't sort of sort through what I was smelling. I had the same experience with Ingenious Ginger from Goldfield and Banks, where I really was hoping for a lot from that fragrance. I know a lot of folks love that. It just didn't work out for me. It was just kind of flat and like messy in terms of trying to sort through what I thought I was smelling. I had the same experience with Keep Glazed, so that one is a no for me. So then I tried one from Profumo di Firenzi. This is called Fior de Pane, and I know pane means bread. So this one, in terms of mass appeal, I would say yes. I thought this was a very easy, pleasant fragrance to smell. It, for me, came across like the combination of fresh bread and sweet florals mashed together. There was something really comforting and appealing about the fragrance to me. I would like to sample it again. I thought it had moderate projection and longevity, nothing like beast mode. And I think I might be interested in trying a full bottle of this. I do want to sample it again, but it was a really pleasant experience, and I want to put it on your radar in case you like bready smells. Fior de Pane. Then from Profumum Roma, Dulcis in Fundo. Mass appeal, no. And here's why. This was powdery, very powdery. It tasted to me like the powder that's sitting on sweeties, those candies that come in the little roll, and they're like almost like little candy medallions, different colors. They're really sweet. They taste great. They have this nice, soft, candied powderiness to them. They're tart and bright. And this was also tart and bright with some citrus and a little bit of sweetness along with the tartness. So it was like a nicely balanced fragrance that way. I think it had like moderate-ish longevity and projection. I think that this is a fragrance I'd like to revisit. It felt a little bit young for me when I sampled it, but I can't deny that it was a really pleasant memory to think about the sweeties that I used to eat as a kid and to imagine that in a scent form. So if that sort of thing appeals to you, I would say definitely check out this fragrance. Then another fragrance that was heavily recommended by all of you as I went through that series of summer videos, and I don't know how to pronounce the name of the house, Maya Nije maybe, Nihe Nije, and the fragrance is called Tropica. Mass appeal, yes, this is a very mass appealing fragrance. I got out of this tropical fruit, clean florals, and it seemed a little salty to me. So it was like a great summer fragrance in that way. And would love to know if you've tried this too and what you think, if you got the same experience that I did. Moderate projection, longevity all around. I don't think I'm interested in a bottle of this right now because I have so many of this scent profile. But if I was in the neighborhood for a summer fragrance, this would be one I would definitely take a look at. Really good. Then I got a sample of this next fragrance in some order that I made. I think it was Ministry of Scent that sent it to me. I hadn't asked for it. It was just kind of like one of those bonus things that showed up in a package from Premier Note. And I'm going to try to pronounce this, Rose Sheherezade. Rose Sheherezade. That's what we're going to go with. I thought this was a really gorgeous rose. It reminded me a lot of like your sweet diamond pink pepper type of a fragrance where the rose is really prominent, bright in your face, has a little bit of spiciness to it. This was nice. I'm not in the neighborhood for this kind of a fragrance, but if I were, I'd take a look at this. This was moderate longevity and projection, and it is full bottle worthy, not for me at the moment, but this was really nice. And if you're into rose fragrances, definitely one to check out. I also don't know how to pronounce this next house, so we'll put it up here. The fragrance is Jaipur Chai. Don't ask me why I've been on a chai or general tea kick lately, but I have. I don't think this is a mass appealing fragrance. I was looking at this fragrance as a purchase for fall, like in preparation for fall, because we can never be happy in the season that we're in. Can we? We're always looking ahead at like, what's the next holiday? What's the next season that we want to prepare for? It's just human nature. I have stopped fighting it at this point. I'm embracing it. I'm loving the summer and also loving the anticipation of the fall. I'm sorry to say, I was looking forward to this fragrance, but on the opening, it smelled like dirty bleach water to me. If you have cleaned with bleach water and you've done a lot of cleaning of floors, for example, or something else, anything else, and the water gets a little dirty, you know what I'm talking about? That dirty bleach water thing? Whew. So it was almost a big fat no because of that. Like I sprayed it on and I'm sitting there and I'm like, I'm gonna tell the people that this smells like nasty, stinky, disgusting bleach water, because it did. But here's the thing, y'all. You gotta give a fragrance a chance. Give it a minute to settle down. Sheesh. Give it a minute to get its thesis statement and closing argument together for you. Present its case, okay? Come before the jury, tell its story. This one needed to tell me a story. So it was after it calmed down, which I would say took maybe 15-ish minutes or something like that. It definitely began to remind me very heavily of a coconut milk chai type of drink. So spicy like a chai is with coconut milk in it, or maybe coconut water and milk together, something like that. So this actually became really pleasant. The thing that it reminded me of, do you all remember me going bananas last winter over a fragrance called Coconut Milk Chai from the Organic Perfume Girl on Etsy? So independent perfumer. It reminded me a lot of that. I'm really happy with my coconut milk chai. So I'm not sure that I will be in the neighborhood to purchase this fragrance since they're so similar. But again, you never know what the future brings and what will end up in a cart and end up on my doorstep. This is one that I'm definitely sort of interested in. I just don't know that I want a full bottle right now because I'm happy with my coconut milk chai. So this is a strong maybe for the fall. Let's just leave it at that. So two more and we will wrap this up. A fragrance that I nearly blind bought. Whew, and it's pricey. From Le Labo, Lys 41. Lys 41. I've heard rave reviews about this fragrance. In terms of being mass appealing, I would say maybe. My experience. Hold on, I wrote a lot of notes. Let me bring my little computer closer. This was slightly plasticky on the opening of the fragrance. I wrote that this is like Carnal Flower from Frederick Mall. I have a Frederick Mall fragrance coming up as my finale here. Carnal Flower meets Ylang Ylang Overdose. That's not a fragrance, but like an Ylang Ylang Overdose. It had this flat banana quality. It was very garden-esque, like sniffing the aromas coming out of a white floral garden in particular. This one, for what I was expecting, it lacked the creamy depth that I was really hoping for, especially at this price point. After a while, it became very yellow floral and somewhat sweet in the dry down. So way deep in the dry down, it became more of like a beachy fragrance. At the beginning, though, it was banana and garden, and kind of a flat way. I would like to revisit this. In fact, I purchased a big travel spray of this and I'll probably take it on vacation and see how it performs out in the heat. I'd like to visit this again and give it another try. But based on that sample, it's going to be a maybe for me at this point. I have other fragrances that smell like this, so I did write down probably not because I have so many, but I'd like to revisit it. I thought it was nice and pleasant in general, although a little flatter than I was hoping for. So then let's round out with, woo, from Frederick Mall, Synthetic Jungle. Mass appealing? Hell no. My description, and forgive me if you like this fragrance. This was deeply herbal in the opening. It reminded me of crushed tomatoes, like fresh out of the can, with dry Italian spices, like the herb that you would get on the shelf, just really sort of dumped on top of the crushed tomatoes. That was what I got in the opening. And then as this thing started to dry down, it gave me the same kind of harsh, freshly dried, right off of the assembly line plastic that Gucci Rush gave me. Gucci Rush in the red rectangular bottle that was headache inducing, felt very industrial, almost electronic. Like if the word electronic had a smell, this would be it. So I'd love to know if you enjoy this fragrance. And if so, tell us about it because I'm only one person with one experience and you may have had a very different experience and love it. Let us know. This was a beast. This thing went on and on. I had to scrub it off. I would not purchase this. Absolutely not. I think it is aptly named Synthetic Jungle. It was a hot synthetic jungle of a mess for me. That's it. Do you like any of these? Tell us in the comments. Do you maybe hate some of these that I loved? Tell us in the comments. Thanks for hanging out this long, and I will see you in the next video. Take care, my friends.